Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kathleen Koch. If my face is familiar, I was a correspondent for CNN for almost 20 years. I covered the White House, Pentagon, aviation, Capitol Hill, so a little bit of everything. I'm really excited that you're here to join us to talk about social media. Think about the name, social media. It sounds so warm and fuzzy, very friendly, doesn't it? I mean, it's where we go to talk about what we're thinking and feeling, and we post pictures of, our kids and our friends and our dogs and our cats and sometimes even our dinners, right? So out of curiosity, how many people use Facebook? Can I have a show of hands? All right. What about Twitter? Okay. Instagram. Instagram is very popular in the United States. Okay, I mean, social media is fun, right? But, when the Arab Spring occurred, and then you saw protests in countries like Russia and Ukraine, I think it became apparent to everyone that this was not just a harmless diversion, right? Social media had real power, and it was power that governments, at least most governments, couldn't control. So I think what we're here to discuss today is the fact that it is not, we shouldn't be surprised that some now are trying to go on there surreptitiously, hiding their identities, to try to turn the discussion toward their favor. So I have a wonderful panel. I will quickly introduce them. First of all, as you know, the host for GlobSec, Ambassador Rastislav Kačer, is the honorary president of the Central European Strategy Council. He's the organizer of GlobSec and our host, and since 2013, he served as the Slovak ambassador to Hungary. Ambassador Kačer is a recognized expert on diplomacy, foreign affairs, and defense policy. Next to him is Jessica Otto. She's an investigative reporter at, and how do I say this, YLE Kioski. It's a Finnish broadcasting company, and she has a great personal risk trying to reveal the secrets of Russia's social media disinformation campaigns. And then finally, Walter Quattrociocchi is head of the Laboratory of Computational Social Science at the MIT Institute of Italy. He conducted a detailed study on the phenomenon, analyzing Facebook posts during a 5-year period. Now, before we begin our questions, I would like to look at a couple of questions that you all answered when you first came in the door. Let's see if we can put that up on the screen. You were asked a question, do you consider social media a relevant source of information? Let's see if that question is available to show you the results. I don't know. Okay, they're finding it. Okay. So there were a couple of questions we asked. Do you consider social media a relevant source of information? Also, do you check the articles that you read on the internet? And we're coming up with a question. And let's see, I think they're going to click on it. But for those of you who didn't hear the announcement, in case someone is just joining us right now on live stream, we have a really exciting technology that we are the first GlobSec City Talk to use, and that is Slido. You can go to slido.com. Okay, do you check the articles you read? Everyone does. Wonderful. And did we get the answer to the other one? Do you consider social media a relevant source of information? Did I miss that one? Oh. It's changing as we watch. Okay, I thought 100% was too good to be true. Okay.
It's always suspicious. Yeah.
All right. What about the other question? I guess these aren't firm and fast results we have.
There you go.
Okay.
Up and down.
All right. But in any case, if anyone wants to ask questions online, go to slido.com and use hashtag CityTalks. And if you are going to submit a question, if you're watching us via live stream, let us know that you're submitting it via live stream, and we'll try to get to your questions, because we'll also obviously be taking questions from our live audience here. Okay, well, maybe we'll skip the other question. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Walter, let's go right to you. You did a lengthy study of this phenomenon. Talk to us about what you found. Why is this happening, and who is doing this?
actually everyone. And since everyone answered that his answer to the, is checking the information we are looking for online, basically we have to see that basically nowadays social media are pervasive. And they are a good medium for the diffusion of information. However, since there is this change of paradigm, in a sense that we, everyone can produce the information and everyone can some way access and find any kind of information. What is basically dominating the process is that we tend to select information by confirmation bias, in a sense that we like to select information that we like the most, that are more consistent with our system of belief. And the strategy of the social media for content promotion quite often is led by popularity. So in this context, basically, there is a sort of democratization of the information, but this is not so good for the quality of the information, because at least we studied two data sets. One is on the Italian one, we found that the conspiracy theories, alternative informations, are 3 times the volume of the mainstream information. And the situation
3
is...
times?
Yeah, 3
Really?
times more.
On social media?
Yeah, 3 times more, definitely, because basically there is no way to check. Information are fast, and basically everyone is sharing. And basically we found this echo chamber effect, in a sense that people tend to join groups where they share the same narrative, they share the same belief. And so we have different tribes that basically select the information, attract the information for the groups. And this information serve to create a narrative that some way has a cognitive function, in a sense that it serves to convey the anxiety that we have, for instance, in front of the globalization or in front of important change, like the climate change. We are doing an important work even on the climate change stuff, because this effect of the echo chamber basically is dominant. The virality of content, actually, the main contribution of my group was in finding that virality is not just driven by popularity, but popularity is a matter of confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is related with our way of thinking irrationally, because the assumption that we are rational human being some way is false. And we are full of confirmation bias. We are monkeys. We are sort of monkeys. And the way we act online really well resemble this metaphor.
Well, I'd like to go to Jessica. Jessica, in 2014, you began a series of really important reports taking a look at this problem. It's referred to as trolling, and those who conduct it are called trolls. You look specifically at what Russia is purportedly doing. Talk to us about what you found and the impact it's having in your country.
Yeah, of course. Let me first tell a little bit about my background. I've always been, as a Finn, very interested in Russia, and also been looking at it because it's our big neighbor, about its propaganda and false information that it's sharing. And I also lived there, and studied there and worked there as a journalist, so I've seen it firsthand when I was there. So now they started to develop this new technique of information war, and it was these troll factories. And I got really interested in that because for me as social media user and journalist, it was just like so, it's obnoxious idea. At the same time, it's just like so genius, and it's so horrible that there are people working, pretending to be just like normal citizens with opinions, but actually get paid for filling out internet with pro-Putin comments. So they're like paid Putin fans. So
And
then
how many? I mean, I've read some of the reports, 250 to 400, and they're cranking out this disinformation constantly.
Yeah. We went to the St. Petersburg troll factory in Savushkina 55 street, and we think, no one really knows because it's so big secret. No one wants to talk about it. We tried to talk with the workers, the trolls, and they wouldn't say anything because they have been so efficiently silenced. So we were trying to get information. There are estimates that there are 200, 300 people, but because there are also unverified, rumors, hearsay that there is troll factories somewhere else too. So it's not the only one. But yeah, they work like 12-hour shifts, and they do also like graphic design, like memes saying that Western leaders are Nazis and fascists and something like this, and stupid pictures. Like, it's just like a Russian propaganda which has always been around in some form in like traditional media, radio, TV, but now it's online and on social media. And trolls spread it on Facebook, Vkontakti. So I wanted to find out how they affect Finns and how they affect, because we have also 20,000 Russian-speaking people in Finland. So we found out in the troll factory that they not only speak Russian trolling or do Russian language trolling, but also English language trolling. So
And so they are mainly targeting countries in their sphere of influence?
yeah, of course, first target for Russian Infowar is Russians living in Russia, and but they also want to control Russian-speaking people over the borders, and of course they want to have influence over their border also on people who speak on other languages. Like on Guardian, they told that they get like thousands of pro-Russia troll comments during the Ukraine war already in 2014. But yeah, this is what I started to find out. So I made a crowdsourcing article. I wanted Finnish people to participate, and I asked Finnish people to help me look for the trolls and what the trolls do and what are their tactics and what kind of information they share and where they're at. So this was just big investigation, and it got really interesting results. Like, Finnish people have been silenced by the trolls on Twitter, trolls who have been calling them names like fascists and Nazis and Russophobe, the stupid names. And also Finns have been tricked into believing lies. Finns have been tricked into sharing propaganda on Facebook also. So but also one happy news is that some Finnish people don't have any effect at all. So they have noticed, okay, there are trolls and they spread stupid Russian propaganda, but it doesn't have any effect.
I'd like to bring the ambassador in here. You have been involved in security and diplomacy your entire career. When did you first learn about this problem, and how concerned are you about it?
That's right. I'm 24 years with Slovak Foreign Service, working for or with Slovak Foreign Service. In my portfolio, the agenda was security policy for all of my career. And I don't know whether it's a compliment when you say that I work that long on this agenda, because I'm biased. So I'm professionally paranoid. I admit it. I'm proud about that, because I think
Could be
people
valuable in these days and times.
well, Kissinger would tell you paranoics are those who live longer. And here, to me, I've noticed a hostile behavior of Russia towards the project of European integration, and in particular towards NATO, for a long time. I've been in charge of Slovak NATO integration process. I got a lot of consultations at that time, which is a long time ago, almost 15 years ago. But at that time, we were not faced with this kind of information war we are faced now. But truth is that the information war, just let me step back a little bit, it's a normal tool. I would not say it's a legitimate tool, but it's a common tool in security and foreign policy making since an early human age. So this is nothing which would be invented in the last 2 years. But world changed in principle because tools changed. The world of media changed, the technical opportunities changed. Today it's much easier to reach out, to hide your identity, which I think now it's much easier than ever before. Before, if you lied, you had to physically lie. And if you physically lie, it's much harder if you have to put your face behind the
lie is
lies.
connected to you directly.
It's very hard to do wrong things with your face right, facing it. Now we see many things change. Now, even with simple things, before a shoemaker was known, if Mr. Batya did the wrong shoes, then you would say, I don't buy Batya shoes, and Mr. Batya probably is not a good guy. Today, who knows who makes these shoes? I don't know. You know, this is probably some venture capital where you would check on your iPhone how much shares you have in that venture and how much profit you got. And this is coming to the world of media. So those who produce news are you don't see the face behind. So it's easy to behave irresponsibly. So even in the mainstream media, we see a high pressure on wrong behavior. But you know, what to social media, where you can hide identity, you can have multiple identities, where you can lie freely, when you can unchain your most rudimentary low instincts and let them out, and then let the devil be unchained. But directly to your question, I think it's about just before war in eastern Ukraine, where this became very, very visible, that the information war is going on. I think, but it's a couple of years, and this is not that it's coming overnight. It's been going step by step. It's like disease. You get virus, and it starts to develop, etc., and then you get the fever, and then you start coughing. Today, I think we are in a serious phase, and it's extremely strong. It's intense. And to me, when I said before that there is nothing new here, information war was always here with us since the beginning of humanity, but the intensity, it's very unusual. It's strong. And the second thing which I want to say, and I finish here, we underestimate that information war, it's the war. It's means of war. It's hostile behavior. It's dangerous, and it's equally dangerous than any other more conventional hostile behavior. Maybe on the long run, it's even more dangerous, because if you got a conventional armed attack on your territory, that would mobilize nations, that would mobilize the allies. Well, you know how you face in the fragile, well, in the best meaning society, you know, it was a quote, the democratization of information. It sounds great, you know. Who would oppose that you got more information? Who would oppose that just it's a richer source? Who would oppose, you know, have an alternative view? Who would oppose that social media, the power of the government cannot control, just picking on your remarks? I'm government, but I love the idea that we have something which is out of control of government, because God knows what intention has got government. You know, you should never trust government. I worked for government 24 years. So it all sounds lovely, but it's the war. It's the war.
I'd like to continue your analogy of a patient. Walter, if we see, you know, this patient that you were describing, the lies of misinformation spreading and being like a disease, even when we try to treat the disease, try to inoculate the patient, you found in your research the patient only gets sicker. Tell us about what you found.
Because the virus metaphor works if we consider that the receptor of the virus is really, really complex and is some way under the pressure of our social group, because online we enter in these filter bubbles, these echo chambers, and there the problem is that we decide what is entering in that echo chamber, and we are rejecting the rest. For instance, we did a study on 55 million of users in the US on a time span of 5 years, and basically the first point is that we found that people just consume or scientific information or mainstream information or alternative information. There is no overlap among the groups. Plus, the point is that we measure how these groups respond to debunking information, attempt to correct false information, for instance, chemtrails or the New World Order conspiracy and so on. And basically the effect is that out of 10 millions of users commenting, just 5,000 interacted with the debunking post, and out of these 5,000, the majority increase their activity in the echo chamber, in a sense that they get the backfire effect. They get crystallized in their position, and actually, because proof of correction is just the proof that someone is paid to correct and to neglect, to hide the truth. For instance, pretty similar to what Jessica was saying before. I mean, Finnish were assumed to brings to diffuse false information, but I think that this is a pretty something that is natural in a human being, in a sense that you want to share this because it's coherent with a sort of anxiety, something that is really connected with your mind frame. And at this point, in this stage, the problem is that the democratization of the information creates fragmentation. And the diffusion of the virus is basically impossible to stop with this instrument, in particular with the debunking one, because debunking actually is information that remains just in the scientific or rational echo chamber.
So the more you try to debunk it, the more the people in the echo chamber cling to the fact that it's true.
Yeah.
Jessica, talk to us about what's happened to you as you've tried to take on the trolls. And if you could tell us a little bit more about them. We had an audience question here about the average age of the trolls. And trying to...
The workers of Troll
Yeah, well,
Factory.
because the trolls, I understand, they've attacked you personally. I mean, they have tried to bully you. They've tried to blackmail you. And are you concerned that they could use these tools to stop the media from trying to reveal what they're doing?
Yeah, let me just tell you a whole story because it started already right after my crowdsourcing article was published, so September 2014. So we have one famous propagandist in Finland who is always spreading like Kremlin disinformation and also going to Russian state media to tell lies and false information about Finland. And he has some very close ties to the Russian Duma, and he visits there and also visits Syria before Russia starts to bomb Syria. And he started to spread all these horrible lies about me online, that he was writing that I am famous assistant of American and Baltic countries' special like security forces, so implying that I'm foreign agent and not a journalist at all. And he was also saying that I'm gathering some kind of illegal database of Putin's supporters in Finland. And he would say how horrible this is and just like distort my troll investigation totally. And also he did this story on like 10 or something Russian language fake news sites, and also later on Finland and in many places. But he put my contact information there, so people would start to email me and call me, even from Kazakhstan, Russia, even from Ukrainian number. I got a very threatening phone call. So it was an international like field campaign that was started against me, my work. So
did you feel like stopping? Did you think this isn't worth it?
Well, yeah, sometimes, because now that it has already been going on over 1.5 years, and all kinds of very sick stuff has been happening, like I'm constantly like under stalking and surveillance, whatever I do on social media. The trolls and troll activists, they take it. For example, if I put a new profile pic on Facebook, they take it and then they put it to some disinformation content and then publish it. And also they have been stalking my personal history from very far away. And now they are doing stories in cooperation with Finnish like neo-Nazi blogs that I am NATO information agent drug dealer. And they are taking my dancing photos from online and then putting them to English language. I'm NATO information expert, a drug dealer, field articles, and saying that I inject drugs and I'm schizophrenic. And it's just
Mr.
like,
Ambassador, what can we do about this? I mean, she's being harassed. Aren't there laws against this? How do we stop this?
There are a couple of elements. It's inspired me to a lot of things. I have to sort it out, I say. First of all, this campaign gets more and more aggressive. It's clear. So with the success, appetite, growth. the kind of threatenings you facing, I saw other people being subjected to. In Slovakia, we got some other guys like you are who do this just out of their own passion because they are just sick of what they see, what is happening, and they think it's dangerous for the country, for the society, for the core values, for the way of life. And I know at least two of them, and I follow their social network, and I see how threatened they are. And it's becoming too much more physical threat. They are threatened by death. They are sent bullets with the name inscribed on a cartridge. In GlobSec organization, we got people who got messages of a type, we will cut your throat, but first before we will cut your throat, we will cut throat of your wife and your children, and we will have you watch it. And these were real people. Some of those hate messages were real people. So here we are confronted with a disease.
Those threats?
Not a long time ago, say half a year ago. And here we are confronted with at least two layers. It's more complicated, but to simplify, I say two layers. First layer, this is an intensious, paid, directed, organized system. They've got people who may not even think that they do anything wrong. I just do what I'm paid for. So you know, there's the fan. You throw the shit hits the fan, off it goes. Whoever it hits, I don't care, I'm behind the fan. And then you got the second layer who got infected with the shit thrown on the fan. And these I call the useful idiots. And sometimes these are people who mean, again, nothing wrong. You got various interest groups who pick selected segments, because propaganda, it's pretty sophisticated. It doesn't go to a single area. It's many overlapping areas. And sometimes it's even hard to say. There are some very innocent looking areas, but when you would do analysis, what is linked to what and who spread what kind of what, you know? This is the technique which my son led me to this, because he was interested in the past in some techniques of information. This is called a merchandise of doubt, I was told. This was often used in 50s, say, by tobacco companies. With aim is not to persuade you that smoking kills you, but to seed doubt within you. Who knows who is right? And you would pay a campaign where a kind of a scientist, and even true scientist, would publish something which would dilute a doubt that this is a lethal thing, etc., etc. So at the end,
Creates uncertainty.
create
that spreads.
absolute uncertainty. So you silence up some portion of population who just say, okay, maybe, you know, I'm just not going into this. God knows what is right and what is wrong, what is behind not. You just got disgusted by that, and you silence up. And that creates also a sort of warriors who would take it as their own just cause and start to fight for that. But not to come to legal means. When I saw these threatening messages through the internet, I immediately said those guys who were confronted with this, I said, well, you know, immediately take screenshots of that, save that, because these people are smart. If you see that you try to trace this, if you try to analyze, if you try to data analyze, because these days this is not that hard. You
And
don't
were
have
they
to
able
be,
to?
Yes, they were able to, yes. We took screenshots, we took some elementary data, and I said, go to police and file just the case.
And have these people been brought to justice? Or are they
Well,
still
you
out
know,
there
in
threatening?
Slovakia, to be brought into justice, that's another story. We would need additional 2 hours.
Silly me.
How you get brought into justice. But at least police started to investigate.
Because there have to be consequences, otherwise this will continue. Correct.
And even they classified this offense as it's quite a serious offense. So if a person would be proven of that type of wrongdoing, it would mean a jail sentence. Well, so there is a going on
Maybe you need to,
investigation.
trolls need to be jailed. Maybe
I
that's the only way we're going to
encourage
stop this.
everybody who is
Right.
confronted with this type of hostile behavior to fight back. You know, do not give up. Just do not get threatened. And I mean, use all legal means which are there. Go to police, call to government, and we should take it seriously.
Already taking care of
Yeah.
it, I believe.
So, you know, I think the last thing, because this is the aim. This is the aim, to create a community of people, or most of the mass of the people, who think, okay, you know, well, God knows, you know, this is too muddy, and God knows who is right and who is wrong in this case.
Discourages
Just,
participation
you know,
altogether.
just pull away, just pull off.
Disengage.
Disengage.
And that's the
don't
last
be an
thing we need
active
in our
citizen.
democracies today.
Well, that is, well.
Very sad.
I also try to look at, of course I continue my work. I always did that, even though sometimes I have been very scared and also sometimes crying. But I've always continued and always also will continue. But I see positive side in it, because they are so harsh, they are so violent, and they're so aggressive, and they do it so, you know, brutally. And I always bring it out what they do. I drag it into daylight. I make articles about it, and I make everyone look at it. Look what they do. So it also, their own actions go against them, because now there is so much more knowledge in Finland and also internationally, because journalists are also internationally interested in me, about Russian information warfare and pro-Kremlin trolls, and
So you're
also
making a
hate
difference.
speech.
You're making a difference.
Well, I'm just reporting about the trolls. The trolls are who are the active ones here, but yeah.
I'd like to bring Walter into the discussion, but I'd also like, I think we have a microphone here, so if someone in the room has a question, I don't know where are our microphone runners, if they could bring them so that we can ask questions, actually have you ask them here in the room. I think they're going to go get some. But Walter, there was a question that came in, and there are a few that have been along these lines. You know, what can ordinary people do to enhance their media literacy? Because it seems to me, as this problem is increasing, that the fake information online, the misinformation is because there's more and more of it. It's getting better and more sophisticated all the time. How does the individual sift through that? I mean, if countries don't have laws in place that can aggressively target this kind of behavior, then is it just up to us to muddle through?
Actually, I mean, my perspective is quite different, in a sense that by your assumption, there is someone that is good and someone that is bad online. On our studies, it is that, actually consider my example, I'm sympathetic with both debunkers and conspiracies, because for conspiracies, I'm paid by the New World Order for doing these studies. For the debunkers, I'm some way putting in a bad light their works. So they are a little bit pissed off with our results and so on. So the problem that is inside there is that basically this religious thinking that we have online doesn't look for the reality, for real information, looks more for simple explanation to oversimplify reality. In a sense, there is globalization. It's simpler to think that there is a secret plot played by someone that want to treat our society and so on. The problem is that, or my perspective, at least our hypothesis, the one that we are working right now, is that online we start to create a gap between our real ego and our virtual ego. And this virtual ego is fed by likes. So we are under bulimia for approval. We are attention war some way. And in doing this, we frame a character, basically an actor, something that is an idealization of a human being. So for instance, you have vegan, and inside the echo chamber, everyone acts to be the best vegan. You have the debunkers, and you want to be the best debunkers. And so these basically drive the acquisition of the information. And at this point, checking the truth value of the information is almost impossible. To break this symmetry, we have to enter in the really cognitive dimension of this. And for doing this, actually, we are structuring a 5 years research plan that is exactly striking in this direction, because we want to understand what are the cognitive dimension that are involved in the digesting and in the promotion of the information. For instance, talking about mainstream media, we got, and we are doing another study on the overall global spreading pattern of information. Actually, every one of us online is, on average, is just following 2 or 3 information sources. So we are basically ignoring all the rest of the information. So we basically select our religion. In that religion, we feel a little bit, we feel comfortable. And in this, we live and let's feed our virtual ego. So breaking this symmetry to me is not so simple. And the information war, the main threat of the information war is in the fact that it's bringing to polarization. Is basically making impossible to reach consensus even on critical stuff, for instance, immigration, for instance, actually, those dynamics are the ones that are used by ISIS, because they promote a narrative that attract people to that echo chamber, and their narrative, some way, cover some disorder, some personal disorder of the people bridging and reaching this system. And they play on that. So this game is really, really difficult to break. And I'm agree with you. I mean, I'm totally agree when we say that this is one of the biggest threats for our society.
I'd like to see, did we get our microphones in here to ask questions? Have our audience participate? Oh, do we have microphones?
We do
for
too,
you? Did we?
microphones.
Okay, great. Go ahead. You have a question? Or you're the mic runner? Okay, who has a question? Here we go. Thank you.
I have one.
Okay.
My name is Matthew Kwazaborski. I'm from America, but I live next door in Prague in the Czech Republic. And I think one of the things I want to talk about, the trolls are really a nasty problem, and you've faced them very personally. But there's other things that the Russians are doing in propaganda-wise. I mean, in Czech Republic next door, they've created 60 to 70 websites in Czech language only for their pro-Russian propaganda. And they also go onto the news and talk about how they, there was a child that the pro-Ukrainian forces crucified, a child, in the eastern part of their own country. And then that was brought out to be a falsification, and that was proven to be. But it seems like they're still very strong. There still seems like they're very successful in what they're doing. What can we do on our end? And what do you guys see happening? And I think this is for all the panelists, that you see that the Western can fight back against what the Russians are doing and the pro-Russian sympathizers. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful, and that actually echoes something that someone had submitted online, a question to Jessica. But along the same line, can you give us some tips, some know-how, how to uncover the trolls by their behaving? So, and anyone want to take this question and
Let me first say that there are also so many disinformation pages in Finnish language. And even though now Sputnik News, which was also in Finnish and is also in many language versions, they stopped making new disinformation articles. There is just like new blogs coming up all the time, and new forums, and also new Facebook groups formed all the time. So, and yeah, they don't only do text articles, but they also do videos, and they do songs also in Finland. And they put them also on YouTube and everywhere. So they are covering all that. And then when you said about, new other techniques, they also use some cyber tactics and like false emails and stuff like this. And that's also a very interesting topic and should be uncovered by investigative journalists and also some specialists very quickly, because it will be in the future, I believe, even bigger threat than it already is. And also influencing with information will be so much bigger in the future. That's what.
Certainly in the United States, I found that this problem is not very well known. I spoke to fellow journalists about it, even people who work for the Voice of America. I said, are you aware of this? I'm doing this panel next week. And they were like, no, I didn't really know that was going on. So I think that's part of
At
the
least one of
problem.
your
If people
candidates
don't
is
know it's happening, they can't fight it. And do you think governments are taking this seriously?
Well, I just kind of nasty comment that at least one of your presidential candidates seems like be trolling, but whatever, you know, don't take me too incorrect.
Let's not go there.
I
Let's
don't
not
want
get
to.
started on that.
I don't want to go there. But let me come back to that Czech question. It originated from Prague, because if you live in Prague, you will precisely understand what I mean. The information war, it's only a part, it's a segment of a strategy. It's one piece of puzzle, important piece of puzzle, but not the only piece of puzzle. What we see happening in Europe, we see the growth and the rise of extremist political parties and extremist political thinking of two sorts. One which is which is ground, not extremism, very close to a Nazi or fascist type of thinking, and we see growth and rise of parties like that. Second, little softer version would be just a kind of xenophobic, nationalistic, patriotic type of parties we see growing. And then we see a couple of individual maverick politicians, some even directly elected into their chairs, spreading the thoughts and thinking, which would absolutely mirror the type of rubbish, which is a part of information war. And I think we got already enough evidence that there is support for parties like that. So it goes well beyond beyond an information war. This is the seed you plant, and then out of that seed grows the tree, which got the trunk, which got the roots, which got the leaves, flowers, potentially some fruits, etc., etc. So this is not only about the information war, which is happening on the alternative media and which is hitting our space, but it's creating or it's offering support also to extremist political parties who are getting, look in Hungary, Jobbik, how strong is that? And more than, I don't know, 50 or how many, 2/3 of university students would vote Jobbik. It's crazy, because you would think, and we've done some research as well, because you would think that those who are highly educated would be less prone for propaganda. But there's no correlation like this. That one of the most shocking outcomes of our research was that university-educated people are even above the average to follow so-called alternative media. So it's absolutely shocking.
Fascinating. There was a question online, are we aware of how many young people believe in the trolls? Are they some of the ones who are more vulnerable and susceptible to this? And let's see, where did it go? And where can this lead in the future if we don't do something about it now?
Can I, just 1 second, 1 second, to that, because you asked me what government should do.
Right.
I think we should look into the glass and say, let us pour a bit of a clean wine into the glass. If somebody is that hostile to you and spends money and effort in these type of hostilities, so are we going just to sit down and watch that? Or do we do something about it?
So what
we
do you
have
do?
means,
What
we
do you
have
do?
means, we have means to prove that who is doing this. So the next step, after good intelligence analysis, and you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do it. If people like there can do it, people who's got another means to follow and dismantle into the substance, into the roots, who is behind, you can have a very clear intelligence evidence what is going on. And I think we should come to a point where we just simply would sit quietly at the table and ask those who would be at the roots. So say, so what do you mean? Why you do this? What is your intention? If you would say NATO is hostile or European Union is bad, why do you think so? And why do you behave so hostile to us and say this is a hostile behavior which we take as a hostile behavior, and if you do not stop, we will respond. I always say, if we do not behave, most of you saw this Hobbit movie or Lord of the Rings movie, and this Balrog is coming with this whip, of this fire whip, and Gandalf is standing there on this bridge, and it's a single man with a simple stick, and he says, "You shall not pass." If we do not behave like Gandalf behaved at the bridge with Balrog, and we would stand there and say, "You bloody, you shall not pass," then we are doomed. It's simple like that. History of history is evolutionary process. It's not a moral superiority. It's whether you can protect your values and your system and you survive, or you eaten up.
And
It's
no one
simple like
seems to
that.
have the guts to do it so far.
Well, I say nothing for that.
Did either of you want to tackle some of what he said or the question about young people? Or we can go to the audience.
Well, I mean, the percentage of young people
You have something on that?
trusting in this role, actually, there is no correlation with any kind of gender
Or age.
age,
Nothing really.
education. Actually, is the fact is that you are feeding that, you are falling in that trap just because you are surrounded by a system that in some ways acquiring that kind of information. And I totally agree that we should respond to this because in this distance, in this gap between the real ego and the virtual ego, and this bulimia of attention, we can start to inject information. So basically, we can some way bring cognitive dissonance. We can some way fight this kind of propaganda by some way having jokes, mocking them, and it works, because if you start to put the belief of the echo chamber in contradiction with other belief, the system starts to collapse. Until now is the only way that on our studies is proving some result in smoothing this storm. And on this, I think that there is not so much attention in this street, in this kind of war that is there, actually.
Let's go back to our audience in the room. Who's got a question? And where are mic runners? We have a question here. Where are mic runners? You got one. Great. Go ahead.
I'm a journalist and I have a question. Actually, I have two questions for our Italian expert, Mr. Quattrociocchi. Okay.
I think so.
The first question is like, don't you think that people, in fact, don't read online? They scan the information. That's why they can't comprehend the content. And the second question is like, how do you define what exactly a like mean? Because I had a story we posted. There was some news item that the number of suicides in Slovakia went up. And we got 40 likes, and we were like, what? What exactly do you like in a headline and in an item about people killing themselves? Okay, maybe some of them are mentally disturbed, I could say, but still, how do you define a like? What does exactly? It
Well, we
means
have to say,
solidarity?
Facebook has taken some steps now, at least in the United States on our Facebook. You can now click on not just like, but you have other options. Do you have that here yet?
Yes, we have.
Yes,
but
so now you can put the sad face. Maybe the person
No,
was
we have
liking
clear likes, clear
the subject was being explored, because you couldn't really.
Yeah, but
tell
still,
before.
how do you define a like? Those people who click on like without sad faces, how do you define a like? What exactly is it?
Actually, our approach is not speculative, so we really just measure stuff. And for us, a like is different from a comment and from a share, just because it's a different pointer of attention to a topic or a post. So basically, it's a kind of active interaction with something. So coming back to the first question, people are surrounded by a large amount of information. We have limited attention, so we have limited resources to spend to understand what is going on. So still this bursts the process of acquisition of the information by confirmation bias. For instance, just an example, an important Italian newspaper last year published an interview of mine talking about my studies, and there was my name, Walter Quattrociocchi. I know that is pretty strange, like a name, but however, the fact was that the interview was clearly stating that I was the one talking about the study. And this was in the scientific echo chamber, so not on the alternative one. And I wrote just like trolling, just mocking. This is a fake, this is not true. And someone, in a while, start to arrive and commenting, oh, you didn't read the article. It was an interview to mine, and I was with my own account. So the name of the comment was the same on the paper. So at this point is that no one is checking for the information. You just look for something to discuss about. You want just to complete, you want just to argue online. And the presence of the echo chamber just reinforce this position. So if you are some way depressed because of the economical situation and so on, talking with other people that share your own belief, just reinforce this feeling, this sentiment. And it's really difficult to break this structure. And actually, the interaction, the simplified interaction, just made of likes, comments, and share, just burst this oversimplification of the communication, because now even in Italy we have, policymakers, some policymakers from the populist side, I'm not doing any names and so on, but Beppe Grillo and Salvini are really using this kind of approach by talking about slogan, talking with slogan, and actually what they propose is just an oversimplification of reality, what people want, because they feel in trouble with this migration fact, all this corruption and so on. So it's really simple to find a whipping boy, someone to say that he's guilty for something, so you can identify, convey your depression on something specific. But actually, this is the core of the communication. Even Trump is doing the same, actually.
Jessica, did you want to?
Yeah, I want to comment on one possible solution, which is, I think, often overlooked because maybe it's too simple. Because at least the Finnish language trolls and trolls operating on like the Finnish information sphere, they use hate speech. Not all of them, not the smartest ones, they do just more subtle propaganda, but some of them do hate speech, which is criminal, to do like libels or spread information that harms you personally, and information that is made to just like make you look bad. So there is legislation for that, and they use Twitter and Facebook for that. So on both, on Twitter and Facebook, on their rules, it's forbidden to use them on illegal activities. So some Finnish people have made so many reports about abusive, like hate speech language, about the troll profiles, but for some reason Facebook doesn't do anything about them, or Twitter
So
also.
they're not acting on their own policy.
Yeah,
So is it going to
exactly.
be up to governments
And
to?
also it's not allowed to have like a troll profile on either of these platforms. So I don't know if it's a language problem, but I don't really care what problem it is, because it's really doing so much damage that Facebook and Twitter let trolls operate. Of course, they also do some cleaning up, at least for the bots that just like spit out Kremlin propaganda simultaneously. But still, and they have put down some profiles, but still they should be so much more active.
I think it's important that we recognize that, obviously, we've been talking a lot about Russia, but there are a lot of other countries that engage in this. China is said to have some 300,000 in this, I think it's called a 5-cent club, where they get 5 cents for every piece that they put out on social media that is pro-Chinese, against the United States and the West. So you made this reference to this being this new weapon. So are countries going to increasingly be forced to enter this battlefield and pick up that weapon if it's being used against them? Do they ignore it at their own peril? I mean, there's a saying, an old saying in the United States: if you can't beat them, join them.
I'm one of those who think that we should be true to ourselves and live an honest life, and you will be rewarded at the end. I know it's hard. I know it requires a lot of devotion and patience, and sometimes it feels like you're the last idiot on the earth. But I think that the strength of democracy, in liberal democracy and liberal system, is that we should not use the tools which are indecent. And we should confront the hostile behavior by different means, and not to use the same means, because we would
Not
come
tit
to
for
the
tat.
same league. I think this would be a complete disaster and a very wrong mistake. But we should defend ourselves. We should not let those who do not like liberal democracy kill the liberal democracy by its own means. So, and I do not have a reply, immediate reply. If I had, I think I may get very rich, very famous, and very influential, because it's very hard, and it would require a lot of take, and but this is the strength of liberal democracies, that they are adaptable, they are changeable, they can tune. And it seems like in the last, I don't know, but at least in the last couple of decades, seems to be that liberal democracies has been the most efficient system, a competitive system in the world, which has been producing the best results for people who live in liberal democracies. Now we go through a major challenge of our system. We see a lot of people who are losing confidence in this, partially with mistakes which we do ourselves, because it's not a perfect system. Also due to the virus, which is used by those who don't like that. But we should not go into using, excuse me for the word, bullshit, to counter the bullshit. This is not going to work.
Well, I'd like to go to Walter for some closing thoughts. Walter, what do you think?
That actually is a critical problem, and democracy has to remain democracy in this context. So the democratization of the information is right. Democratization of knowledge is probably a mistake, because knowledge is not democratic. Knowledge requires verification, falsificability, and so on. So basically, we have to define some rules that can shape the interaction paradigm online, because at least the free circulation of content is something that is some way important for our society. But if this means that the most of information are fake information, something is not working. That's exactly the point, I think.
Jessica, do you have some final thoughts for perhaps
Yeah.
journalists who you
Yeah.
would like to encourage to follow your lead and take
Yeah,
take them on?
definitely. Just like I would want to see, there's already so many great projects that are investigating all these fake and troll and propaganda topics, but some people want to a little bit avoid them, and also avoid these like topics that they think are somehow hard to, like, I don't know, to write about, or they're a little bit maybe scared. But this kind of journalism and investigation should be done more, and also like quality investigative journalism, and journalists should be supported. At least in Finland we have great support for anyone who is investigating these kinds of topics, and that's also key, because you need all the support when you become target for Russia trolls or other extremists too, because now there's so much right-wing and neo-Nazi extremism also in Finland, and they also target individual reporters. But support and investigations and good journalism.
Mr. Ambassador, any in 30 seconds?
This is hard in 30 seconds. First of all, we should recognize the danger of information war which is going on. This is not that new, but we see the new quality and quantity of that which is happening. We should encourage our political leaders and those people who we vote for to have the balls and
Take this
just
seriously.
to take that seriously, and not to get intimidated or not to be calculative in the way. They should know where we are. They should know where is the north. They should know what is our fundament, where we are leading to, and they should have the guts to defend and tell people this is the way to go, and not start calculate. Yeah, maybe this is. I'm not going to say this because God knows what is the impact of this and that. We come to the era where we need to know where is the north and have guts and balls to follow.
I think that's a wonderful place to end it. Thank you to my terrific panel. Thank you to my wonderful audience, and to everyone who is watching on live streaming. Have a good evening.